spend this episode taking a closer look at what took place that day and the developments since that day. So what sort of evidence have we uncovered? What have we discovered since then? And we're going to take a deeper look at this. We're going to look at the congressional testimony from both Corey Mills and Eli Crane. And we're going to listen to their entire testimony with Chairman Mike Kelly and all of the back and forth. So we're going to be together for, I'd say, at least an hour. So buckle up. We are returning to Butler, hypothetically speaking. I'm John Cullen. Let's get started.
Every time you come around, you know I can't say no. Every time the sun goes down, I let you take control. I can feel the paradise before my world implodes. And tonight had something wonderful. My bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know. Swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes staring into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say. Yeah, I was looking for a way out, now I can't escape. Nothing happens after two. It's true, it's true. My bad habits lead to you. My bad habits lead to you.
Utilizing going forward, particular witnesses you think that we should have, any thoughts you have about what and whom we should be bringing in to testify?
One of the videos that I've seen online is from a gentleman named John Colin, who talks about the possibility of a second shooter, and he shows a video, Miss Lee, where in this video he shows a bullet traveling down a path and the disruption that round supposedly makes, and then flies into one of the stadium fence railings. That shows that it would have been very, very difficult for that round to travel the path that it did had it come from Thomas Crooks. I think that you need to bring this gentleman in, see his evidence, and if you don't think it holds water, then you need to make that assessment. John Colin is somebody I think you guys should bring in here and look at the video evidence that he has of a bullet traveling in a trajectory, in a path that would not have been able to come from Thomas Crooks.
And I'd like to just echo this. The one thing that doesn't lie is bullet trajectory and also the coefficients that it carries. And I think that Eli and I had talked about this prior to the hearing, but also multiple times about John Cullen's video that does show, if you look at people who were injured and the actual line of sight and where it was to the stage, just kind of what the possibilities were and how many shots were truly taken.
The most parsimonious explanation for what you've got captured in this single video, we don't have to worry about aligning it or anything like that, is you've got 3 kinetic events in a straight line. That tells you had an object, but you definitely have the strong suggestion of a line that you could extrapolate from.
What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a metal freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean.
The key piece of evidence around the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt is the round that hits the back of the railing. And that is really the pivotal piece, and there's reasons for that. And I think that's kind of where we need to start. So we're going to begin with the footage that TMZ actually acquired from someone. And this is probably the best footage that we have of the round striking the railing. And the reason this is so pivotal will become apparent. In other words, we have to build on it. So first we have to sort of acknowledge what's happening. and then I'll show you why this round changes everything. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's just take a look at what happened. All right, so we're watching this corner railing, and the guy who's standing in the corner with the red hat on and the dark blue shirt and is his left hand on the rising railing there, we call him the lucky guy or the lucky man. And he's standing in that corner, and just next to him is David Dutch. So David Dutch is right to his right, and they're both looking up at that Jumbotron. So let's roll this footage. You're going to hear gunshots and screaming and stuff like that. So for those of you who are queasy or get upset by this, this is probably, a good time to step away. So let's watch this footage together, and just kind of, you're taking this in, you're making note of this, because this is the key. This is what changes everything at this crime scene. So let's watch this together. Here we go.
Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over, and look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
All right, so the reason this is so pivotal is there's two reasons, actually. But the first thing we have to kind of acknowledge is that there's a bullet hitting that piece of metal up there. So whatever it is, you guys call this thing, the stand riser, where everybody's standing, there's a bullet that's hitting it, and it's hitting it right next to this guy in the blue shirt and the red hat.
Country, probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
All right, so there we have it. Now his right arm by his elbow gets injured, and his right buttocks gets injured by shrapnel from this. So whatever, hit either the bullet itself or the railing turned into shrapnel. And you're going to hear an interview in a little bit with David Dutch, and he's going to mention shrapnel flying all over the place. He mentions that. But with this guy standing here, there's two reasons this creates a problem. And one of it, the first reason, is simple geometry. In fact, if this guy was not standing there, the geometry of lining up this corner with Trump's ear and then the roof of AGR doesn't work. All right, so that's number one. Number two, this guy is standing there. And because this guy is standing there, this changes everything. And let me show you why that is. So we have this guy standing here in the corner. And we're going to combine that with Trump and the model. And we're going to listen later to the hearing. And one of the things that Clay Higgins is going to throw out in the hearing is he's going to question the accuracy of our 3D model and our ground plane. And what you guys are about to see is evidence of how we basically eliminate that objection, which is the model and the images from the videos. Basically, we take a screen grab from the video, and that's a photograph. And the photograph lines up with the model. So the roof line of the building, Trump, the podium, the guy in the back, and the railing line up. All right, so when the model was built, the ground plane was purchased, I think, for $99. And that was highly detailed, and then we adjust to make everything photogrammetrically aligned. So let me show you kind of what this means here. Let me run this video for you guys so you understand what I'm talking about. So the guy who's in the corner, if in fact the round that hit Trump's ear were the same round that hits that the railing with the puff of smoke, and the issue here is Trump's ear is hit with the first shot that we hear. So the first shot hits his ear. But the first shot that we hear, we also see a puff of smoke on the railing. So is that the same shot? Because so far we've only heard one shot with this puff of smoke. And we've got Trump's ears already been hit and the railing's been hit. Well, when we model this in the 3D model, if the round is fired from the rooftop of AGR at Trump's ear, it doesn't go to that railing where we see the puff. It actually goes underneath the guy's left arm and through the balustrades. That's what those vertical things are called, balustrades. And it would pass through the balustrades. Let me run this video so you see what I'm talking about. So the fact that we've got Trump photogrammetrically aligned with the model, and we have the lucky guy in the corner photogrammetrically aligned with the model, that's how you know that the ground plane is aligned. And the railing is photogrammetrically aligned with the model. So all the ground plane chit chat is nonsense. I mean, it's aligned. You see how well aligned it is. I mean, it may not be within a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch with the ear thing, but this is close enough to say that we've aligned the AGR rooftop with Trump's ear. 2 points make a line. So where the shooter is, where the shooter's gun is, to Trump's ear would then continue underneath the lucky guy's arm, his left arm, and through the balustrade. Did that happen? I don't know. We don't see evidence of that. But if the round was fired from the rooftop of AGR and it hit the railing and made the puff of smoke, well, that's different too. In other words, the puff of smoke shot, could that have come from AGR and the rooftop of AGR?
Probably 20 million people.
Let's watch this without the audio, and let's just watch this puff of smoke. And when we get to the, I guess we need it.
Really see something that said, take a look what happened.
All right, so we get this puff of smoke here, right? So we get this shot, bang, and it comes off the railing, and we know he gets injured, right? See that? See the gray?
I really see something that said, take a look what happened.
All right, so that happens, and there's our cloud of smoke there, going backwards. Okay, now go forwards 1, 2, 3 frames at a time. There's the puff of smoke coming off of there. So the issue is when we line that up with the rooftop of AGR, let's look now at the model. The lucky guy in the corner, it would have to go through his torso to hit the railing because he's standing there. And that didn't happen. And the issue then is, but we've got one shot that we hear, Trump's ears getting hit and the railings getting hit at the same moment. But we hear one shot. And this is where the twist that the Secret Service guys on the rooftop testified that they thought that they were being shot at with suppressed gunfire. So they said they thought they were getting shot at, and that they were getting shot at with a suppressed weapon. Well, that would explain why we would see this puff of smoke downrange, but only hear one gunshot, which would be the gunshot coming from the AGR vicinity that hits Trump's ear. Because we've calculated the cracked thump on that. All right, so we know what the crack thump is on those first couple shots, and we'll take a look at that in another episode this weekend. But this notion here that the round that hits this corner railing obviously didn't pass through the guy in the corner with the dark shirt and red hat, the lucky guy. He only is injured on his elbow and his buttocks and his hand a little bit, but obviously a bullet didn't pass through his torso. And that's what would, that's what would have needed to have had happened in order for the bullet to have come from AGR and hit the railing. It would have had to pass through him, and it would not have hit Trump. It's about 18 inches to 2 feet away from Trump if it hits the railing from AGR. So it can't be the same shot. And it kind of can't be from AGR either. And this is what introduces this notion of it's probably coming from the trees. And that's where we have the video clip of the guys turning towards the trees. And Vanessa Broussard saying, it looks like that's where the gunfire is coming from. So when all the evidence continues to point in the same direction, that's probably what's happening. All right, so these guys testified they're being shot at. They testified it sounds like it's suppressed. We witnessed them turn to the right clockwise and aim towards the trees, and Vanessa Broussard gives us the play-by-play. She tells us this is happening. So when you put all this evidence together, what it means is apparently there's another shooter in the trees shooting at the Secret Service guys, not at Trump, trying to kill the counter snipers so that the primary shooter can continue to shoot at Trump. If there's no counter snipers left, assuming that the bad guys kill all the counter snipers on the rooftops, now the really bad guy shooting at Trump is shooting unabated. There's nobody shooting back at him. And that's what it appears this setup was. That they've got people shooting at the counter snipers so that the primary shooter can shoot at the primary target unabated. That didn't work out because they had a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind and for some reason the wrong equipment, which is very bizarre. It's something that I don't understand. I think most of the other guys that I've talked to who have served don't really understand why such a mismatch on the equipment. The idea of a red dot sight for a 150-yard shot in outdoors in the wind is just a mess. I mean, it's just the wrong choice. And for an operation of that magnitude, trying to kill a past president and a potential future president at that time, it's just very, very odd.
Still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there. And there is enough data to at least say that there's a good chance that President Trump feels like he is under threat. We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him.
All right, so the FBI marks him confidential human source. And once they do that, other agencies can't talk to the guy, apparently. So the FBI says, hey, we've got this guy, he's giving us information, we're going to mark him confidential human source, and now that keeps him from the rest of the intelligence apparatus. Remember, the FBI works for the Department of Justice, and all the other agencies, CIA, NSA, all that stuff, reports up into the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. All right, so it's a different reporting structure. The FBI does not report up into the same line of command, chain of command, as the CIA, the NSA, and the rest of the intelligence agencies. So when they mark something confidential human source, the other agencies are getting shut out.
All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested, and then 2 days later, a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and we know the CHS was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating.
So the DHS IG is Joe Kafari. Joe Kafari is an Air Force general, former Air Force general, who's the Inspector General for the Department of Homeland Security. And Secret Service is part of Homeland Security. So Christine Noem, when she was running Homeland, asked the Inspector General to investigate the Butler shooting. What you're hearing from Joe is that even Joe Kafari, the IG from Department of Homeland Security, was being shut down. Listen to this.
The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalists found that Crooks did indeed have an...
Now, I received correspondence from Joe Kafari. So after the testimony in Congress by Congressman Eli Crane, I heard from Joe Kafari, sent me an email, and asked if he could assign an investigator and have me talk to that investigator. I said, sure, of course, happy to do it. And I got an email from one of his investigators, but we never went forward with any kind of a Zoom call where I was able to walk them through the 3D model or anything like that. So it's like, they said, do you want to dance? I said, sure, let's dance. And then they stood against the wall and didn't dance. It's kind of strange. So they never really engaged. They made all the motions appearing to engage, but we never really got to get into the material. And it sounds like from Joe that they got shut down on the back end. It wasn't that they weren't interested. It's that they were told stand down. So one more time, let's listen to this.
Online persona.
Quite an extensive
online footprint.
one.
And he was talking to people. So it's like, why aren't we investigating this? If
an attempted murder of a presidential candidate,
and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran, very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval.
That a young man tried to kill then candidate Trump during a rally at the Butler Farm Showgrounds. A bullet hit Trump's ear. A man in the crowd, firefighter Corey Comparator, was killed and 2 other people were hurt.
Jennifer Barrasso just sat down with Corey Comparator's family minutes ago, as well as the other 2 victims who survived, David Dutch and Jim Copenhaver. She's live with a story you'll see exclusively on KDKA. Jen.
Kim, so Corey Comparator's family and David Dutch and Jim Copenhaver, who survived, they are bonded by this tragedy, and they're bonded by the frustrations they have against the Secret Service and their failures. And they believe, the 2 men who survived, they believe it was a miracle that they did survive in that fateful day in Butler. Now, in a KDKA exclusive, Trump Butler rally shooting survivors Copenhaver and Dutch met with Corey Comparator's sisters and his mother nearly 1 year after the Trump attempted assassination in Butler. Dutch and Copenhaver then sat down exclusively with KDKA. They were sitting on July 13th in the bleachers behind former President Trump, seats they did not originally have, but moved, they tell me. They described the moment they were shot.
When it felt like somebody punched me right in the gut. I didn't hear any shots right away. We noticed some shrapnel flying, and we were didn't know what it was. And then I got hit, and then round shrapnel was flying everywhere, and I was just yelling for people to get down, and tried getting down the best I could to where I'd be able to get back up. And basically, after shots finished coming, I told my buddy, I said, hey, I'm hit. I need to get out of here right now.
So I was standing up looking at the Jumbotron behind me, and next thing I know, my sleeve has been yanked, and I could see a portion of it going by pretty fast, and I heard, pew! Yeah, I mean, I heard it. And I didn't realize at the time that I'd gotten shot, but I turned around, and that's when I got the second shot. So the second shot, it didn't hit bone. See, mine went into all soft material, and it was like a jolt, but it didn't knock me over. But I didn't want to stand anymore either, you know.
That doesn't. Jim Copenhaver, who is 75, now walks with a cane. He was shot twice. One bullet tore into his tricep. The other bullet is still lodged in his body, taking chunks of his colon and leaving him with nerve damage. The shrapnel in his pelvis, I've learned, may never be able to be removed. He has had multiple surgeries to repair his lower abdomen, infections, scar tissue, and pain. He struggles even to put his own shoes on. David Dutch, 58, was shot once in the abdomen. The bullet split his liver. He has fragments inside his abdomen that can't be removed. He can't go back to work, still dealing with a lot of pain. And they do have lawyers, and they have started a lawsuit regarding negligence on July 13th. We'll have more on this story. Stay tuned to KDKA. More from David Dutch and Jim Copenhaver and Corey Comparator's family. Reporting live, Jennifer Barrasso, KDKA TV News.
She tells us that David Dutch was shot once, and all the reporting up until now was that David Dutch had been shot twice. I guess he was kind of clutching his upper chest, and he was hit in the liver, and so people thought he was hit twice for whatever reason. But according to this report, he was hit once, and, you know, that's good enough for me. So the net of this is James Copenhaver was shot twice, once in the tricep on the left side, and then in the abdomen, in the liver. It sounds like they both got hit in the liver. And David Dutch was hit once. Doesn't sound like anybody's terribly thrilled with Secret Service guys. That seems pretty consistent. All right, let's take a look at some of the newer developments that have been happening in the last week or two. Just recently, Piper Truth 1 posted a bunch of names of some of the counter snipers at the Butler venue with photographs of them so that we can better understand who's who. These are not the guys that were on the roof behind Trump. These were the guys over by the horse ring where there's like a grandstand area. And so Piper Truth got some information, got some data, and started publishing it on X, formerly known as Twitter. And I kind of latched onto it and said, oh, this is interesting. And this is going to take us into sort of an exploration I think you guys are going to enjoy. So Piper Truth posts this on X, and I put a post out and said, hey, great work by Piper Truth finding the names of the other snipers and this image from the FOIA dump. So the names are Matt Wagner, Bill Wilson, Ben Schaefer, and Ben Huminski. And what I posted was it says one of these guys must have contacted Erik Prince It was the source of Prince's 488-yard tweet. One of these four guys took a shot. But at whom? Where? Remember President Trump said behind a tree, not on a roof. All right, so the issue here is that these four guys none of them are 488 yards from the kid on the roof of AGR. And Erik Prince was real specific. President Trump less so, but President Trump said 400 something yards when he was talking to Elon Musk in the Tucker Carlson film. So who are these guys? Matt Wagner, Bill Wilson, Ben Schaefer, and Ben Huminski. And why is this so important? Well, we've got these counter snipers on the rooftop behind Trump. We don't know the names yet of the two guys that were closest to AGR, but were kind of hidden by that tree. We do know the names of the guys who were on the furthest rooftop who ultimately ended up shooting the kid on the roof. So the guy who fired that 10th shot, that's David King. He's all the way on the right-hand side. The guy who was with him is John Marciniak. So those were the two guys on the Hercules 1 team on the South Barn rooftop closest to the pond. And it was David King that took the kid out on the rooftop. The other team, we don't know their names. That's Hercules 2. And they were being shot at. They're the ones who testified they were taking fire and that they thought it was suppressed. I believe both teams were taking fire. But that's another story. All right, so what Piper One posted that was so interesting was this photo. And this photo shows us these guys in the bleachers. And this is something that we never really saw this before. But a while back, we had this, right? Photograph on the left-hand side here. But when we see this is a whole new perspective. So I was curious, where did this come from and all that? And we're going to get into that in a second. But again, this ties back to this Erik Prince tweet. So Erik Prince was the founder of Blackwater. And Erik Prince puts out a tweet that says that there was a Secret Service counter sniper who took a 488-yard shot and dispatched the assassin. He says it down here in the third paragraph. So it's pretty specific, 488 yards. And he talks about, how many shots the bad guy took and all that, and then he killed him. So Erik Prince sends this out, and the issue is that from these bleachers, so from this, this location, and in particular, I'm talking about the one on the bottom, the image on the bottom, it is 488 yards to the water tower, not to the kid on the roof. And that's kind of awkward. Now, we don't have any ballistic evidence of a shooter on the water tower taking any shots. All right, so I have to point that out. There's no evidence there was anybody up there shooting at anything that I have found so far. Yet, it is exactly 488 yards from the bleachers here on the bottom part of this bottom photo to the water tower. It's kind of awkward. So this image, the image up here, this is the broadcast booth in that same facility, the same building. And all this stuff came from a resource that Piper shared with everybody and said, well, here's where you can get all this stuff. And you guys will find a link to this down in the comments. I don't want you to get off track right now, but there's a link down there to all this stuff. And it's basically, there's two PDF documents. One is called the Research Tool, Butler Research Tools, and the other's to help identify who's who. So there's two different PDF things. We're going to look at both of them together. And when we go through this, there's a whole lot of really interesting information. And some of it fascinating, and some of it is wrong. And some stuff is missing altogether. That's a little weird. All right, so let's talk about what do we see here? What's odd? What's wrong? What have you? All right, so let's start on the right-hand side of this. The guy all the way to the right is Jason Woods. And Jason Woods was supposed to be in that room upstairs behind the kid on the roof in the window. And he went home sick, like at 4:30 in the afternoon. So an hour and a half before anything happened, this guy's already gone. And his name is Jason Woods. The guy next to him is Greg Nickel. Greg Nickel's sort of the rodeo clown here. He's doesn't know which way is up. Greg Nickel shot himself in the leg 18 months ago, showing somebody his weapon in the locker room. And then we've got Ben Huminski, and he's one of the guys in the grandstand. He's one of the guys here in this lower photograph. Ben Huminski is the guy standing up looking through binoculars. The other guy is Ben Schaefer. And Ben Schaefer is the guy in the photograph here who's on the rifle. So that's Ben Schaefer on the rifle, Huminski standing up. And Ben Schaefer is interesting because our friend Ken Silva did a story about his testimony at the congressional hearing. So there was an informal congressional hearing August 26th, and Ben Schaefer speaks at this, and Ken Silva does a story on him. Well, it turns out that Ben Schaefer, of all these guys here, is the only one who's a consultant. Okay? And as a consultant, might he be the one who's got a link to Erik Prince? Erik Prince down here says images from a SEAL sniper instructor at Red Sky LLC. So the question then, of course, is does Ben Schaefer have any connection to Red Sky LLC? I don't know. But it sounds as if there was a connection to Erik Prince, sort of, who got in touch with Erik Prince and said, hey, remember me? I used to work for you. Yeah, I just took a 488-yard shot and killed the guy that was trying to kill Mr. Trump. I don't know. It's speculative. But somebody told Erik Prince that a 488-yard shot was taken. Was it one of these guys? Was it Ben Schaefer? Was it Ben Huminski? Now, Matthew Wagner is in the grandstand area where there's a broadcast booth. And that's the upper part of the picture here. So there's like a broadcast booth here for radio, whatever. They have horse races or horse shows, rodeo. And the broadcast guys are up here. And that's where they're set up. So this is, in this room, in the upper room, you've got Matthew Wagner. And it says unknown. And it shows Mike Mirko. But that's not where Mike Mirko was. And that adds a degree of suspicion to this whole document. Okay? Because Mike Mirko was not in the grandstands. He was somewhere else. So he was at AGR. Now they've got him kind of lumped in here. You see how it says Matthew Wagner, West Grandstand, unknown West Grandstand, Mike Mirko, AGR? But they've got them kind of lumped together because they're all from Butler County ESU. I think it's deceptive. Mike Mirko is upstairs in AGR with Greg Nickel. Mike Mirko and Greg Nickel don't work together. Mike Mirko's Butler County, Greg Nickel's Beaver County. Jason Woods goes home. The only two guys that are in the building at AGR are Mike Mirko and Greg Nickel. And maybe the guy who owns AGR, or the guy with the white hair. I think the guy with the motorcycles walking around, and the guy who owns AGR may be inside the building. But as far as uniform guys, this is it. It's Greg Nickel and Mike Mirko are inside the AGR building. Matthew Wagner's in the West Grandstand in the broadcast booth. We don't know the name of the other guy who's up there with him. And Greg Nickel and Greg Nickel and Mike Mirko are inside AGR. Ben Schaefer and Ben Huminski are in the grandstands here in this bottom photo, with Ben Schaefer on the rifle and Huminski standing up on the with the binoculars. All right, so that's what's going on. And then from where Ben Schaefer is, from where he's sitting right there to the water tower, 488 yards. So you tell me. All right, so the issue here is this document has got a tremendous amount of information, but some of it's a little weird, and some of it's wrong, and some of it might be a little misleading, and I want to take a closer look at that. So Piper Truth 1 said that Ben Schaefer was posted as a sniper July 13th. He was at the forum that made us all think that there was hope and that something was going to be found. All right, so Piper is, same thing. So this is that photograph that we had originally from Reddit, and they kind of made it look like that was aiming at the kid. But that's not 488 yards. That's like 350 yards or something. So this is deceptive. I measured from the broadcast booth 488 yards to try and find, from the broadcast booth to the water tower was 502, and then 488 didn't really go anywhere. Like to somebody's house or something, in the neighborhood or something. It's like there was no real 488-yard scenario from that broadcast booth. All right. So going back to these guys, right? Greg Nickel, we're going to take a look at the video of him coming out of the door at AGR, looking all confused and everything. And that would have left Mike Mirko alone in the building, right? Right. So they find a bunch of blood in the sink in the bathroom. Mike Mirko's alone in the building. Greg Nickel locks himself out. We'll watch the dash cam in a minute, and I'll show you that. He locks himself out of the building. This is quite a mess. Let's take a break. Refresh your beverage. If you're not yet a patron, this is a really good time to join. I'm going to be spending some time with the patrons going through some of this material in a patron-only session as we wrap up this, which I'm not doing right now. I've got a little bit more I'm going to share with you guys on YouTube. But if you're not yet a patron, consider supporting this work. All right, I don't have any sponsors. I don't sell pillows or supplements or anything like that. And for $5 a month, you can support this type of journalism at patreon.com or subscribestar.com. And that's the only way I make a living. And you guys know I do this full time. So we'll be right back in just a moment. I'm John Cohen here on Hypothetically Speaking, and we'll be back with the second part of the show.
Every time you come around, you know I can't say no. Every time the sun goes down, I let you take control.
All right, we're back. This is one of the documents, one of these recognition tools that Piper pointed me to, or us to. And I wanted to share this with you guys because there's just a tremendous amount of information here on, they call this a recognition tool, meaning how do we recognize what's what? The vehicles, the command control things, other response vehicles, the different uniforms. This is incredibly comprehensive and very, very powerful tool to have at your disposal. And it looks like they list a bunch of people here. Thank you to all the peak prosperity contributors listed alphabetically below who helped with identifying the members of various police departments. So I wasn't sure where this document came from. It said Vegas Patriot up on the top. And I wasn't sure who Vegas Patriot is because I went to Twitter and looked for Vegas Patriot. I couldn't find who the hell is Vegas Patriot. And then I started reading this and I see all this stuff. And then here, I read this. The following content does not reflect the opinions of Peak Prosperity contributors, or other content providers. So it appears this came from or is affiliated in some way with Peak Prosperity, which is, what's his name? Chris something or other. And yet he doesn't put his name on here, which is a little bit odd. So a whole bunch of folks here are named. Let's go through this and see what we've got. So they're pointing out all the different law enforcement vehicles. Okay, Butler, City of Butler, Jackson Township, Middlesex Township, Penn Township has two different types. Allegheny County, Butler County Sheriff. So all the different vehicles have been identified. The Pennsylvania State Police, and then who was driving which one. I mean, this is an unbelievable amount of detail. The law enforcement vehicles from Hampton Township, Bellevue Borough, the motorcycle unit, the Pittsburgh guys that came up. Right? Remember we heard that one of them was injured? One of the Pittsburgh motorcycle cops had to go to the hospital. 4 of them were hit with shrapnel, but one of them went to the hospital. We didn't hear a whole lot more about that. And then they point out all these different Bearcats. They got a Pterodyne, a Bearcat, the UTV, all kinds of, overkill here, and all at the venue. Then the Allegheny Police, the special units, SWAT team, Washington County had a Bearcat, not used at the rally, but they have one. But you thought that was important. Here's the command center, the bomb squad, and then we've got some footage. Other response vehicles, fire and rescue, hazmat, and then the helicopters that came in, the ambulance service. And then to help us identify who's who, they're sharing with us the uniforms. All right, so the U.S. Secret Service Special Agents, we've got the Secret Service Protection Detail, and this is their outfit. That's Sean. I think Sean Curran's his name. Here's Secret Service Special Agent in with this badge and this outfit with the gun in the holster. Here's a Secret Service Special Agent in a different outfit. And then here's U.S. Secret Service Police. I think we called this guy, what do we call this guy? Something Lopez, Dirty Sanchez or something. Jason and I were calling him Dirty Sanchez. Here's a bunch of the other guys, and then they've got sort of the pecking order of these guys and what patches they wear, what badges they have. So this is Secret Service Police. Then they've got a Secret Service SWAT team, their counter-assault team. And these guys are their, special weapons and tactics from the Secret Service. So they've got a SWAT team. So everybody's got a SWAT team. And then the counter snipers, right? So these are the guys who are up on the rooftops of the buildings, and their titles are technician, officer technician, sergeant technician, lieutenant, captain, inspector, deputy chief, etc., and the patches that they wear. Then we get the other uniforms from all the other folks that are running around this place. The FBI Evidence Response Team, the Homeland Security Investigation guys, these are them. The Department of Defense guys. So it turns out there's a DOD guys with a canine doing explosive stuff. I don't know about that. And then here's the state uniforms from Pennsylvania State Police and the Rangers and the Park Rangers, and all of these guys are running around the venue. And then you got county guys, the Butler County Sheriff's Department, the Allegheny County Police Department. They're all running around. They got guys in tactical equipment from Allegheny up on the rooftop here. Then you get the local guys, the Butler Township Police, the City of Butler Police, the Cranberry Township Police, and they're all running around the venue. And then the uniforms of the local guys, the Adams Township, the Saxon, Zillion, Opal, and Penn Township. Then the local guys' uniforms from Prospect Borough, Middlesex, Jackson, and Slippery Rock. And then the local ESU SWAT guys. So the Butler County ESU is in sort of green camo. Beaver County ESU is in sort of green camo, a little bit. And then Washington County SWAT's in the black BDUs. Then the local ESU SWAT, North Hills, has an SRT team, Special Operations from North Hills. And then the city of McKeesport has a SWAT team from the borough of Dravosburg. Then here's your FBI leadership at the time: Chris Wray, Paul Abate, Robert Wells, and Kevin Rojek was the Pittsburgh special agent in charge. And then U.S. Secret Service. So we've got Kimberly Cheadle, Ronald Rowe, Michael Plotty, David Torres, Anthony Guglielmi, Jeffrey Burr, and we don't know this guy. That's an interesting guy down there on the right side. We don't know who that is. U.S. Secret Service Operations, Tim Burke from the Pittsburgh field office is this sketchy-looking guy that we saw run around with the bald head. Brian Pardini is the guy on the roof, the ginger guy on the roof that's asking all the stupid questions about the bicycle and shit. Watch this. This is him fighting in an MMA match. Brian Pardini, at one point, was fighting in MMA. And the cool thing about this PDF thing is that you click on the links and it opens up the browser and you can, go see what that is. And so this guy, Brian Pardini, is in an MMA match, and if you guys click on this link here, you can go watch him fighting. It's hysterical. Here's Chase Clouser. He's running around the venue. TSI John Edwards is a technical security and investment. Technical Security Division Investigator. Technical Security Investigator for Technical Security Division. Fascinating. So all these are all Secret Service people. All these people are on the payroll. Secret Service agent Kristen Stahowski, Site PI Roving Post, Phoenix and Fresno. What the hell is she doing in Pennsylvania? John Seckler, unknown, from Baltimore and D.C. This is Special Agent Maya Sodi Perez, and she is one of the agents that was placed on administrative leave. We know that. And then this is Meredith Bank. She's the one everybody's making fun of because she couldn't holster her weapon, and she's probably 20, 30 pounds overweight. So I think people were kind of making fun of her. But I know that Maya Sodi Perez is from the Pittsburgh office, and she was put on this administrative leave. And then a whole bunch of other folks. Here's Ed Castro. This is the guy that Jason called. He's from Nevada, but it appears he was there, or it says unconfirmed. But Edward Castro is the guy that was responsible for flying the drone that we have quite a bit of footage of, and they don't want to talk about. And then here's Sketchy Guy down here. We don't know who Sketchy Guy is. So the fact that Sketchy Guy has not been identified with all this stuff, I find that interesting. Right? We were pointing at Sketchy Guy the first week. And I said, who's this guy? Where did this guy come from? He doesn't look like he fits in. And we don't know his name yet. All right? And they know all these other names, and they don't know Sketchy Guy. So they know the names of all the protective details: Sean Curran, Matthew Pyant, Nick Menster. Don't know this kid's name, special agent. All right. And then we saw this clown show over here with this guy with the red shirt, and this guy looks like Frankenstein's brother. And it looks like he's got this long chain attached to his wallet, or he's got a pocket watch or something. I don't know what's going on. But they can't figure out who these guys are. And I think that's pretty funny. So, and they're running around with pistols in their hand, by the way. This guy's got a pistol in his hand. This guy's got a pistol in his hand. This guy's got a pistol in his hand. And they show you these guys over here. And so Piper posted this. Piper Truth posted this. They give some credit to Jason Goodman, provided by Detective Bonnie Sedlock to Jason Goodman. So that's good. U.S. counter snipers. Here's the guys that were on the rooftop. We don't know the names of the guys that were on the roof closest to AGR, but the guys on the rooftop closest to the pond, John Marciniak, and the guy who took the shot that killed the kid on the roof is David King. And these are the guys who were on the south barn, Hercules 1. The guys who were getting shot at, we don't know their names. And John Marciniak was considered the lead counter sniper. David King is the guy who takes the shot and kills the kid on the roof. Then state and local leadership. Detective Patrick Young is the guy that Jason calls and talks to. It's the guy down here with the goatee. And I think Jason spoke to him at least once. Pennsylvania State Police people. I don't know any of these people. To me, this is amazing because I'm not a people person at all. Like, this is overwhelming to me. A lot of great stuff, right? Tactical response members. Here's Zalaponi, right? So Zalaponi. Got that. Butler County. Here's Nederlander. Osterling. Here's Aaron Zalaponi. All right. A lot of detail here. Here's Richard Gianvito. Okay, he's out there. And Gianvito is one of the guys involved with the photos. Taking photos, getting photos, and Jason's got his name unredacted in some of the photo stuff that he was tracking down. So Gianvito's a key guy. Michelle Vassilidodos Nickel is Greg Nickel's wife, and she was the medic up on the rooftop. We see her here. Then we got a whole bunch of these guys. These are the CAT guys in their SWAT gear, special tactic kind of guys. Counter assault from Beaver. And then we got this crew here that we know. These were the counter snipers we talked about earlier. Greg Nickel, Ben Huminski, Ben Schaefer, Mike Mirko, and I think Mike Mirko is kind of suspect number one for me. Butler Township Patrol guys. These are the patrol cops. Other departments, detectives, the chief. It's amazing anything happens. Then other agency personnel. Dr. Goldschmidt, the medical examiner. William Young, the coroner. All right, so those are the key people. Non-law enforcement participants. So one of these weird-looking guys, they don't know who that is. Margot Martin is the director of communications. We see her running. She's in like a blue outfit. Rico Elmore is a Republican committee or something, and he was running for something, and he gets covered in blood, tending to Corey Comparatori. Dr. Jim Sweetland also, I think, was tending to Corey Comparatori. And then this is Henry Dimmick. Henry Dimmick, with the long hair, looks a little bit like David Lee Roth, is the CEO of American Glass Research. And he's walking around looking like he's going to a polo match. And I think some people may have confused him for the shooter, to be honest with you. So this is Henry Dimmick, the CEO of American Glass Research, looking a whole lot like David Lee Roth and running around. This is Kurt. Kurt is the motorcycle owner. That's the guy who parks the Harley in front of the place, and I guess he works at AGR and is one of the senior guys there. So he just barks right in front and whatever, but whether he was in the building or walking around, he's got a flag draped over him. I think he was walking around the grounds. Where Henry Dimmick was, the CEO, I don't know if he was inside or not, but I think there was an Alfa Romeo parked in the parking lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if the CEO was driving an Alfa Romeo. We saw the interview with Mr. Evans, the guy with the bicycle that was riding to Idaho or something like that, and he had a bedroll and a backpack with him, and they thought he had the bomb. So we saw the interview with him. And then down here they got links to all the body cams. So all the different body cams from all the different cops with the names of the cop that was the body cam is from and all that. So, and Grassley's body cam, and then the map of the venue. A lot of great stuff here. This is unreal. And then links to the FBI's field office in Pittsburgh, and the Secret Service has a field office in Pittsburgh. Homeland Security, the Pennsylvania State Police, links to all their stuff. All the departments in Butler County, all the Beaver County departments, All the Washington County, everything is all here. So that's great. All right, so the issue is that they've got Mike Mirko kind of looking like he's in the grandstands, but he's really upstairs with Greg Nickel. And Greg Nickel comes darting out of the doors of the building 2 minutes after the shooting, looking around like, what's going on? What's going on? Leaving Mike Mirko alone in the building. Let's take a look at this other document. So there were two of them. This is the recognition tool. Let's take a look at the second document that we have here. All right, so this document is the one they call research tools. Similarly, following content does not reflect the opinions of Peak Prosperity. So again, this is linked to Chris Martinson. So we've got a timeline of events, and the sources are Raw, Roku, and Vegas Patriot. Timeline with the Congressional Task Force, links to that timeline according to Senator Johnson, according to Fox News, according to PBS. Radio communication timelines with transcribed stuff, and here's Ken Silva, Noisy Turtle, Red Ran Amber, Brian 60221, Vegas Patriot again, Senator Grassley, etc. Then some maps of the buildings and which building is which and which one's called which and by whom and which is American Glass Research and which is After Action Report stuff. Where are all the doors? Then Sori's buildings and doors map over here on the right side. Then a bunch of other overview maps. More overview maps. Initial map from the July 9th meeting. Some more maps. And then this map shows you which cops are where. Murphy, Wenzel, Sass and Cuss, Blasco. Shows you where their cars were. Collins. I mean, this is an unbelievable amount of detail. Then we've got drone and satellite footage here. The DJI 88 Shot 2. High Roof DJI from Associated Press. From Columbia Dispatch. From Sky News. Here from Paramount Tactical. From Benny Johnson. First aerial, initial roof, and updated from the Spa Guy. So we got Spa Guy content. We got Paramount Tactical content. We got Benny Johnson content. Huh. More body cam stuff. And then videos. Here's Dave Stewart shaky cam. So Dave Stewart extended cut. This is all the shaky stuff with Dave's graphics. Sightings. The shooting from the crowd, and shooting from the crowd some more. So a whole bunch of footage here. Rally videos from crowd victims. For those of you who are already supporting my work at Patreon and Subscribestar, thank you very much. Without you guys, I couldn't do this. And for those of you who are not yet and are considering it, please consider supporting this for $5 a month. And it really makes this possible. I mean, without your support, I truly couldn't do this. All right, let's continue with this this document, the research tools document. One of the things that kind of jumped out at me was that in the research document, he's got these rally videos, or she's got these rally videos, Vegas Patriot. And the videos have the crowd victims, so Dr. Mine, Dr. Sweetland, etc. But then there's some compilation videos over here on the right, and then there's synchronized videos. And he's got Rocky Trump Boa, and Rocky Trump Boa has a synchronized video. He's got the GHI sync with Tedesco. He's got the Milk Bar TV synchronized video, and the Spit 7201 crowd videos. And this is when I sort of started looking at this sideways, because there's so much information in this document in both of them. And then I get to this, and those are the only videos that you have of compilations that are synchronized, because Jason did the GigaSync. I did, and Jason did the GigaSync like a week after I did the MegaSync, because the MegaSync, I think, kind of inspired Jason that, really it would be helpful if we had one that was synchronized to the actual NTSC time clock or something like that they were using for the broadcasts. That's what Jason did, and that's like a level above what anybody else here did. But I made a video that I think I called MegaSync, and my MegaSync video synchronized a whole lot of content. And I guess for whatever reason, Vegas Patriot didn't think it was worth including or something. Let me just play a moment of this. This is from my MegaSync. So this was non-incorporated, non-included, and I don't know, I just thought that was a little odd given how extensive this document is and how much stuff is in here. So the fact that my content was excluded and Jason's content, so Jason did the GigaSync, and that's not in here either. So we got a bunch of rally videos in the document. Advanced footage, the full day coverage, post-shooting, the bike guy interview and all that. And then all the way down here in the corner is the rail shot. All the way down here on the right-hand side in the corner is the TMZ footage of the rail shot, and that's it. So amongst all this content, this is kind of hidden over here on the right side, a tiny little thumbnail from TMZ. And this is the video we played at the beginning of the show. So I showed you the bullet hitting the railing and the puff of smoke coming to the railing. All right, let's take a look at that again. So this is the TMZ footage of the railing being struck. I'm going to blow this up a little bit for you guys so that you can really zoom in on this. Now, while we have this up, I guess it's important to focus on something for a moment, because there's
and then the worst president in the history of our country took over.
So there's a sequence of shots. The first 3 shots, the question is, which of the first 3 shots that you hear correlates with the puff of smoke on the railing? The first shot, the second shot, or the third shot? So listen carefully, watch the railing. Is that the first shot, the second shot, or the third shot when you see that puff of smoke?
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. That chart's a couple of months old.
So to me, it appears that we see the puff of smoke at the same moment that we hear the first gunshot, shot number 1. The problem is that the first gunshot that we hear hits the president's ear, is shot number 1. So that would mean that that same bullet hit the president's ear and hit the railing. And that's kind of physically impossible if the shot is coming from the top of AGR and because the lucky guy is standing in the corner. The bullet can't hit the railing and not pass through his torso if it's coming from AGR.
Then if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
All right, so the other thing that we're going to focus on, since we have this up right now, is which shot, which audible shot correlates with David Dutch being hit. David Dutch is right in front of the lucky guy right here. So you see David Dutch on the screen. He's got his American flag shirt on. He's got a hat on. He's right in front of the lucky guy. So let's see which of the 3 shots, if any of the 3 shots, hits David Dutch. Okay, let's watch carefully.
And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. That chart's a couple of months old.
Watch again.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Now, it looks to me as if David Dutch is getting shot roughly at the same time we hear that second shot. Now you guys watch and see if you think the same thing. Watch. That's one. And now David's been hit. And he's going down already.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
1, 2.
That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, so there's the first shot, hits the rail. We hear the first shot. We see one hit the rail. David Dutch turns to his left and is looking, and then he's going to get hit right now. Right there. David Dutch just got hit. Watch that.
Said, take a look at what happened.
1, 2. And Dutch is now bending over.
See something that said, take a look at what happened.
1, 2. He's shot. Now, Copenhaver is hit here on his left tricep. And he's hit almost instantly. So watch.
And you know, that's a little bit old. That
watch when
that
Copenhaver gets hit.
Months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Jim's already been hit. Jim Copenhaver's already been hit in the left deltoid.
And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
He's already been hit in the left deltoid already. He hasn't been shot in the liver yet. I think that happens with the next 5 shots or what have you. But he's already been hit in the deltoid, and he's not in the right trajectory for that shot to come from AGR either. 1 hits the rail. 2 corresponds with David Dutch going down, but Copenhaver's already hit on his
history of our country took
deltoid.
Over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
So this is the issue here. And we now know that David Dutch was shot once, but was he shot from AGR? Look at where he's standing. Look at his orientation. Look at what he's looking at when he's shot. And he's shot in the right-hand side in the abdomen. James Copenhaver standing here. He's shot in the left deltoid, his left shoulder. And it grazes that. And he's also kind of oriented such that the shot would need to have come from the trees. And that's probably why they're not telling us about rounds recovered from David Dutch. There's no round recovered from James Copenhaver. It's still in him. We heard that in the interview. And the other one that grazed his deltoid, they didn't recover that. So we don't have any recovered rounds to match with the rifle on the roof of AGR. So there's no ballistic evidence that David Dutch or James Copenhaver were shot by the kid on the roof of AGR. All right, so I think that's somewhat meaningful. So if we go back to this document, this coordinating document for all the research content and all that stuff, the thing that started to jump out at me, it took a little while, was how little they're focusing on this rail shot and how none of the content that I've produced is in here. And yet there's content from all sorts of other people. There's Benny Johnson stuff. There's Jeff the Plumber stuff. There's, here's Mia Kopp's video, her eyewitness footage. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and then there's a whole bunch of gunshot analysis videos. The Mike Adams videos are in here. The Chris Martenson videos are in here. And I'm going to be doing another show this weekend looking at Chris Martenson's analysis and trying to figure out, is he right? Is he wrong? Did he make any mistakes? What have you? So we'll be looking at that this weekend. Then he's got Kenny James, M. Torrance, Greg N's time delay of arrival from Greg N. He's got Mike Bell, did a bunch of audio analysis. So it seems that this guy is purposefully avoiding all of my research, all of Jason Goodman's research. And that, my friends, is how you do a limited hangout. You provide a tremendous amount of information that's just overwhelming. And, this has to be tip-top. This has to be fantastic. And yet, the content that demonstrates the potential for a second shooter is relegated to, the smallest amount of real estate possible here. Rail shot. None of the analysis that I did, none of the 3D stuff, the discussion with Brett Weinstein, the discussion with Owen Schroyer, none of that is here. But a whole bunch of other people's stuff is here. Isn't that interesting? So that's the limited hangout. That's how you pull this stuff off. That's how you do the Butler illusion. I'm John Cullen. I'll be back with my patrons in just a moment, and we'll be taking a closer look at the venue itself in Butler, Pennsylvania. Where was the shooter? Was the kid on the roof the one who was shooting at Copenhagen? Or was the kid on the roof actually shooting somewhere else? We'll be right back. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining. Hypothetically speaking, the model. We're going to go to the 3D model. We're going to look at some aspects of where the gunfire came from. In other words, we can look at the shot that hit the railing that probably came from the tree line. We can look at the shots coming from the rooftop and maybe better understand, did the shots from the rooftop, were they even in this direction? Were the shots that the kid on the rooftop was taking, were they towards Trump at all? Or was there someone else shooting towards Trump? I don't know the answer to this, by the way. I'm exploring it. So I'm trying to figure all this out in real time with you guys. So we're going to go to the model and we'll take a look at some what if scenarios. What if this kid wasn't necessarily shooting towards Trump, right? Could there have been another shooter somewhere along this line shooting at Trump that would have hit Corey Comparatori, that would have hit David Dutch, that would have hit James Copenhaver? The other question that we're going to take a look at is it possible that James Copenhaver, David Dutch were shot from the tree line, and that the rounds that hit them did not necessarily come from AGR at all? In other words, if David Dutch was hit, was he shot from the trees? James Copenhaver, was he shot from the tree line? Were these guys hit by silenced gunfire, suppressed gunfire? I don't know, but it's something we can explore. It's something we can take a look at, right? So we can use the model to figure out, is it possible that that's where these guys were hit from? And is it, would that explain why nobody wants to talk about the rounds and whether there were rounds recovered from David Dutch or not? We don't have that. And apparently there's still a round in James Copenhaver. And here we can see the alignment, right? And this is how the kid kind of needs to be oriented in order to be shooting at the president, is that way. And he's not. All right, let's go to the podium camera. All right, so here is the shooters on the rooftop. That's the perspective coming from where it appears the shooter in the tree would be, that may have been shooting at these counter snipers up here. So these rooftop trajectories, we can, again, take them away. put them, right? So let's get rid of all these rooftop trajectories. Let's get rid of them. And they're gone. And there's something called a flight path from the roof, and that's because the bullet drops. And so in order to calculate the bullet drop, there's something called a flight path that we added there. So you can take all that stuff away now. Now there's nothing going from him towards the president, towards the corner. But we've got this other set of trajectories. And they're coming from the tree line. And so that's this trajectory other. And so we can get rid of that. And we can get rid of that flight path as well. But that is kind of the important one. So I'm going to put it back for a second just to make it so that it's a little easier for you guys to see. And we're going to switch to some other cameras. All right, so here's our shooter on the roof. Here's our overview camera of the scene. Here's our south bleacher camera. Here you go. And here's the lucky guy in the corner. And so what we see here is a Trump gesturing, the kid on the roof over there. Trump gets clipped in the ear, the lucky guy's in the corner, and the railing gets hit. And it appears the railing got hit because somebody's shooting at these guys on the rooftop. And we can look from, again, let's pick the stage area camera. Here you go. Here's Trump. And we swing over here. And there's your guy in the corner. And now the graphic that's all orange here, this is the trajectory flight path stuff. So that's the flight path of the bullet showing how much drop it had. And that's how we put that stuff in there. All right, so this hot pink line here is the bullet that hits the railing. And it appears that the bullet that hits the railing came from the tree line out there, not the water tower. All right, so a shot from the tree line towards these Secret Service counter snipers on the rooftop over here that misses them, passes between them, ends up going down the back row of the bleachers. And this was the finding that I, suggested when I went on Dark Horse Podcast, and I said to Brett, it's kind of crazy. I don't know what to tell you, but it looks like the shooter's in the trees. Everybody in that back row flinches. Right? You guys remember the flinch? We see one guy tumble. One guy falls down. We see the corner of the railing get hit. And I just kind of made a line and traced the line back. And so this is kind of weird. The line intersects with these Hercules counter snipers over here on this rooftop. Almost as if somebody was shooting at them. And I'm like, somebody's probably shooting at them. And then you keep drawing the line out. Now here, the line has to be straight because of the way this Babylon thing works, but it's actually an arc. So the way bullets travel, when you fire it, you're actually shooting upward a little bit, and then the bullet's going to drop. And so it's more of an arc here. So this is not a good representation of where the bullet would have come from at the tree line as far as this particular pink line. And so this is why, we get rid of those. So we've got a shot coming from the tree line, potentially at these guys on the rooftop. All right. And then the question is the kid on the rooftop shooting at the other pair of counter snipers here? And I believe he is. I think that's the whole point, is he's shooting at them and they shoot back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They take 5 rounds and they're like, that's it. He's over. He's done. Boom. And that's it. So if the kid on the roof is shooting at these guys, that makes a lot of sense. He's lined up towards them. They shoot him in the mouth. Those are the guys who shoot him, not these other guys. They can't see him. These guys on the rooftop that's closest to AGR, they're the ones who turn towards the trees. So this is when, Vanessa Broussard says, hey, these guys are turning towards the trees. It appears that's where the gunfire is coming from. She's talking about these guys. So these guys turn towards the trees. The other guys shoot the kid on the rooftop. And I think he was shooting at them. I think that that's what this whole alignment thing is about, is that, from where he is, he can't see these guys on this rooftop. They're impossible for him to see. And, I think this is changing the whole makeup of this. So in other words, if he's not the one who's shooting at the president, and the shots aren't coming from the rooftop at David Dutch, at Copenhagen, etc., because that's not who he's aiming at, well then, where did these shots come from, right? And that introduces, a whole nother bag of worms, right? So where would they potentially have come from? The alignment of the ear is very specific. So can't be too far off of that trajectory line, right? So if it's not the kid on the roof, it's not going to be the second floor up there where Greg Nichols was, because the president wasn't looking over there. So it's where the president's head was. It's pretty close to looking at AGR. He said he was not looking at the Jumbotron, or he would have been, shot in the other temple. So the alignment with the right ear, that means it's, within just a couple degrees there. We don't have a lot to work with. So it has to be coming from that vicinity. And the question is, is there a shooter on one of the tractors? Is there a shooter in the crowd? It just opens up a whole new aspect of this, is that potentially the kid on the rooftop didn't shoot anybody. Hypothetically speaking, of course. I'm John Cullen.
Well, thank you both. I certainly appreciate your thoughts and perspective, and can certainly attest that both myself and the chairman and all of the other members of the committee are committed to ensuring that we review and investigate all of the relevant theories, that we're receiving input from members of Congress, from the American public, as well as those who were there, who are the actual day of witnesses of these events. So I know that we will continue in that path forward, and appreciate your input.
Thank you, Gentlelady. Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank my colleagues and veteran brothers, Eli and Corey, for being here today. You have my commitment, each of you, to have candid and private conversations as we continue our investigations. I especially want to meet with you regarding your trajectory studies. I've conducted my own and found that some of the digital recreations for trajectory data doesn't include some of the pretty extreme terrain variances of elevation versus depression of the AGR complex versus the actual stage area. So I'm looking forward to working with you both on that. Let's try to come to a conclusion that we can say, okay, this is what the complete truth is, because we must investigate every potential theory. I don't consider anything to be a conspiracy theory. There are theories of what happened that day, and they all deserve complete, calm, thorough investigation. So you each have my commitment to work with you on that, and I know that this task force is committed to determining ultimately the same thing you gentlemen are, which is a complete and full reveal of truth to the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank my colleagues for being here today.
Thank you, sir. So I want to thank both of you for being here. Some of the things you pointed out, but one thing that this task force does have, the subpoena power. And when you talk about people slow walking you and people not answering questions completely, that's our job to say, you know what, I understand you don't want to answer that question, but I want you to understand that we are going to be sure that you answer that question. The American people deserve to know the truth. I keep hearing they're not strong enough to stand it. They are strong enough to stand it, and if not now, when? I believe we are at a very dangerous time. Very, very dangerous time, and we have our eyes closed and our ears plugged saying, no, that's not happening. It is happening, and it's very dangerous. I want to thank both of you for your expertise. I want to thank both of you for your courage to come forward and bring that information out. I also want to thank the task force that has been working tirelessly and will continue to work tirelessly until we get to the end. But when we get to the end, it will be a finished piece of work, one that is complete in every way, that we will have exhausted everything we can do to get to the truth and make sure that the American people have the faith, the trust, and the confidence that they need to have in our agencies. Thank you both for being here. And without objection, the committee is adjourned.
Thank you.